Welcome back to the life of Bam Margera. Last time, we talked about Viva La Bam seasons 2 and 3, but today, we're talking about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. The history of the Tony Hawk games is both extensive and fascinating, and fortunately, a lot of the research has already been done. Special thanks to Trevor Esposito, also known as Slateman, a long-standing member of the Tony Hawk online community and the founder of PlanetTonyHawk.com, a site that was once dedicated to documenting the history of the series. Trevor even authored the book Tony Hawk's Gaming Domination, an in-depth exploration of the games through interviews and analysis at both technical and a community level. This project wouldn't be possible without Slateman's work, and if you want to dive deeper into the series' history, a link to purchase his book will be in the description. For many fans, Bam Margera is a familiar name, one part thanks to his appearances in these games, most notably Pro Skater 3 to Proving Ground, with his wild antics peaking in Tony Hawk's Underground 2. Today we'll be looking into both that and the cultural impact of the entire series. The Start of Neversoft. Neversoft Entertainment was a video game developer based in Woodland Hills, California, founded by Joel Jewett, Mick West, and Chris Ward in July of 1994. The trio had previously worked at Malibu Interactive, a company focused on sports titles like Madden 95, Joe Montana's NFL Football, and Total Carnage, before Malibu was acquired by Marvel Comics in 1994. Initially, Neversoft collaborated with Playmate Toys, developing a game called Skeleton Warriors, a beat-em-up platformer based on the animated TV series of the same name. Following the release of Skeleton Warriors, the studio spent 6 months working on an untitled game based on the Ghost Rider comics, but financial issues led to its cancellation. Neversoft then shifted to design a mech shooter called Big Guns for Sony Entertainment in late 1996. Despite early growth, Neversoft faced challenges after 2 of their projects for Crystal Dynamics and Sony Entertainment was cancelled. Therefore, the company was entering a tumultuous financial time. Mick West, Neversoft's co-founder and lead programmer for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, recalled in an interview where he said, "We ran out of money working on a game called Big Guns for Sony. They kept changing what the game was and eventually canceled it. Activision was a half-hour drive away. Turned out that they needed somebody to finish off Apocalypse." Apocalypse was a third-person shooter platformer starring Bruce Willis, with Activision securing a multi-million-dollar deal to use Willis's voice and likeness.
Welcome to Apocalypse, a hot new game from Activision that is the first to texture map a real person's face onto a CG model's body.
Welcome to paradise, kid.
And that face belongs to action movie star Bruce Willis.
Time to get jacked up for Armageddon.
The game's plot followed Trey Kincaid, a former colleague of the antagonist, the Reverend, a brilliant but malevolent scientist who had created a theocratic regime based on an impending apocalypse. Players fought through levels based on the 4 horsemen of apocalypse: War, Plague, Death, and Beast, to stop the Reverend's catastrophic plan. The game's soundtrack featured licensed music from that of Poe, System of a Down, Cyrus, Gearhor, and one of my personal favorites, a nu metal band called Snot, capturing the high-energy, rebellious spirit of the late 90s with a mix of industrial, electronic, and hard rock. This particularly matched the dark and chaotic atmosphere of the game, reflecting the angst of the title's target demographic.
I've missed you too much to be angry. My body becomes warm when I think of your flesh shredded
Oh,
and
baby,
devoured
not
by
you
my
too.
viruses. Oh, yeah, I missed you. Give Mommy a kiss before.
Despite its star power and high-energy vibe, Apocalypse received middling reviews, with an average score of 7 out of 10. Critics praised the gameplay as fun, but criticized it for lacking any innovation. Bruce Willis's voice acting was only limited to one-liners, and was relatively brief in the dialogue, which ended up detracting from the depth of the story. Originally, the game was supposed to feature a sidekick character, but budget and time constraints forced Neversoft to abandon this idea.
Let me show you my new domestic policy.
While Apocalypse was far from groundbreaking, its engine laid the foundation for Neversoft's next project, a passion project that would change the entire company. Early inspiration for Pro Skater 1. In 1998, Activision approached Neversoft with the idea of developing a skateboarding game. At the time, there were only a handful of skateboard-themed games, and the genre had yet to hit mainstream success. Neversoft drew inspiration from classics like 720, California Games, and the notorious Skate or Die. 720 was an isometric skate park game released in arcades by Atari in 1986. It allowed players to control a skateboarder performing tricks and building points before a timer ran out. Once the time expired, the game's announcer, who also, fun fact, was the narrator in Gauntlet, would famously shout, "Skate or die." The game was named after the elusive trick, the 720, which a young Tony Hawk had landed in 1985, making the game somewhat prophetic for the series that has yet to come. In 1989, California Games for the NES brought a new kind of skating experience, featuring minigames that captured the essence of California's extreme sports scene, including surfing, hacky sack, and let's not forget, skateboarding. Sponsored by Santa Cruz, which is one of the biggest and oldest skate brands out there, the game, with its simple controls, helped introduce skateboarding to a generation of younger gamers. But the notorious Skate or Die is a very popular one that followed in 1988. Ported to the NES by Konami, Skate or Die stood out in the 2D era of skateboarding games. It tracked high scores, let players choose between regular and goofy stances, and added personality with its humorous dialogue. These elements made it feel like one of the most authentic skateboarding experiences at the time.
San Francisco. You'll finish at the Golden Gate Bridge, but the key here is the tunnel. Once you hit it, go all out, because you're almost home.
By the late 90s, more skateboarding games began to flood the market, but none would prove as influential as Top Skater, Sega's 1997 arcade release. Created by Kenji Kano, the future mastermind behind Crazy Taxi, Top Skater was a downhill jam-style game, where players controlled a skateboard using a physical deck controller. The objective was to perform tricks for points while racing from point A to point B, featuring fantasy-style tricks far from the realism of later skateboarding titles like Pro Skater or Skate. The game was colorful, it was fast-paced, and it embraced skateboarding with its feature of Pennywise on the title soundtrack. Despite its arcade-like mechanics, Top Skater left a lasting impression on the Neversoft team, who frequently visited a nearby bowling alley to play it. They used it as a key source of inspiration for what would become Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Around the same time, another Japanese developer, Atler Double, released Street Skater in Japan in 1998, with a US release following in February of 1999. Just 7 months before Pro Skater hit the shelves, Street Skater followed a similar point A to point B structure as Top Skater, but with more consistent obstacles like rails, benches, and halfpipes. The game's punk rock and ska soundtrack, featuring bands like one of my personal favorite, Less Than Jake, gave it an edgy vibe, but its poor reviews left the door wide open for a next-generation skateboarding game to step in and fill the void. Introduction to Tony Hawk. At the time, Tony Hawk was one of the most prolific and popular skateboarders in the industry.
You don't expect people to recognize you when you're walking down the street, because I'm just like everyone else, and it's just weird.
Having started skating at age 9 and turning pro by 14, Tony had already amassed an impressive career. From 1984 to 1996, he won 73 titles and was consistently named the top vert skater. By 1998, Tony had invented dozens of tricks and launched his own skate clothing line under his Birdhouse brand. Concurrently, Tony was on the lookout for a company to publish a skateboarding video game, initially engaging with Rockstar Games. Rockstar was developing Thrasher Skate and Destroy, a skateboarding sim that focused on the technical aspects of skating, setting the foundation of what would later become EA's Skate series. Thrasher was actually well received by hardcore skate fans for its challenging learning curve and realistic representation of skateboarding. However, it didn't resonate as well with the broader gaming community. The game was criticized for its slow pace and sparse environments. Next Gen magazine gave it a 2 out of 5, citing unresponsive controls, while IGN gave it an 8.5, praising the rewarding challenge for dedicated players. Meanwhile, Activision invited Tony Hawk to Neversoft to discuss what would eventually become Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. During his visit, Tony was shown a demo that used Bruce Willis as a placeholder character skating across rooftops. This was due to Neversoft's reuse of assets from their previous project, Apocalypse. Despite the crude demo, Tony was immediately impressed and agreed to be an active part of the game's development. What drew him into Pro Skater over Skate and Destroy was the fun and fluid gameplay. Tony later stated, They presented me with their engine that did have Bruce Willis as a character and just a few basic tricks. I think it had an ollie and a kickflip. You could also do 180s. Something about it felt right, and I can't explain it. I just knew that it was more fun to play, and with my experience, my resources, I could make this something that represented skating authentically. There wasn't a bidding war. I signed off with them almost immediately. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater became groundbreaking as the first skateboarding game to use motion capture technology, which meant Tony himself would wear a motion capture suit, which would be covered in these little balls that are reflective markers, which would basically be tracked by an infrared camera to capture his movements precisely. This technique allowed Neversoft to create realistic character models and trick animations, which contributed to the game's authentic feel and success. This technique would be used throughout the entire series. Popular skate videos at the time. A lot has changed in my regards to my perspective on skating since I started this project in 2021. I decided to take the opportunity to dive into popular skate videos that were circulating at the time. For anyone looking to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games, I'd recommend watching these videos, along with any others that may be suggested in the comments. Neversoft creators, especially Joel Jewett, were committed to keeping Pro Skater authentic. They achieved this by actually skateboarding themselves and conducting research by watching some of these tapes. This list isn't meant to be a definitive ranking of the greatest skate tapes of all time, so there are some that will be left out. Pal Peralta's Search for the Animal Chin is a classic skateboarding video and a must-watch for any fan of the culture, featuring the Bones Brigade, Lance Mountain, Tony Hawk, Steve Caballero, Tommy Guerrero, and Mike McGill. The tape follows their journey to finding a missing skate legend known as Wonton Animal Chin. The video is packed with iconic scenes, including a massive vert ramp session in the finale that's still considered to be one of the best of its time. From cruising California to meeting skaters along the way, Animal Chin perfectly captures the spirit of 1980 skateboarding.
And as long as skaters keep searching for Chin, they've already found him.
Birdhouse's The End, released just a year before Pro Skater, is one of Birdhouse's most iconic work. It was shot on 16mm film and reportedly cost over $1 million to produce. The video, directed by Jamie Mosberg, features remarkable parts from Jeremy Klein, Andrew Reynolds, and Steve Barra, as well as cinematic stunts including decapitations, explosions, a chimpanzee, and of course plenty of glamorous women because it was the 90s. World Industries' New World Order is a shorter, grittier skate tape featuring legends like Kareem Campbell and Daewon Song, and was directed by Rodney Mullen and Steve Rocco. World Industries rose in popularity in the street scene, surpassing Pal Peralta in popularity. The brand is known for focusing on a more urban hip-hop aesthetic. Plenty of great videos were produced by World Industries in the 90s, as the brand took risks with its edgy and offensive designs and mockery of rival brands. They even received a cease and desist letter from the Church of Scientology. Toy Machine's Welcome to Hell is an iconic skate video that helped revitalize the brand after its 1995 team rebuild. Jamie Thomas joined the brand to film Heavy Metal in 1995, but Toy Machine then invested in editing equipment to produce Welcome to Hell in 1996.
Muska. What up, dog?
Originally, the video was meant to feature Chad Muska, but after some setbacks, including injuries and a crashing video editor, the premiere in San Diego was cancelled, and Muska parted ways with the brand after a heated argument. The video includes legends like Mike Maldonado, Ed Templeton, Jamie Thomas himself, alongside Alyssa Steamer, one of the few female pros at the time, making it even more groundbreaking. Welcome to Hell is a full package, offering something for every skate fan to enjoy. During the making of Welcome to Hell, Toy Machine also started promoting Jamie Thomas's new venture, Zero Skateboards. Initially conceived as a clothing brand, Zero quickly morphed into a skateboarding company after Jamie went full-time. Their first video, Thrill of It All in 1997, set the tone for the brand. Zero videos, like Misled Youth in 1999, focused on hardcore tricks like rails, gaps, and stair sets, with Jamie Thomas leading the charge on fearless gaps and massive handrails, embodying the spirit of what Zero became known for. Girl Skateboard's Mouse is considered to be one of the best skate videos of the 90s, directed by none other than Spike Jonze. Following the footsteps of the brand's first video, Goldfish, Mouse largely features skits and narrative shorts in between heavy skate sessions. Even non-skaters can appreciate the skits and creative editing that's featured in this. The film raised the bar for skate video production and features an extensive roster of legendary skaters like Eric Costin, Guy Mariano, Keenan Milton, and Gino Iannucci, to name a few. Girl Skateboards has produced dozens of iconic videos, with 2003's Yeah Right worth noting for an inquisitive Owen Wilson showing off his passion for skateboarding.
Yeah, man, just fucking do something on this.
Do something on this.
Yeah.
Like what?
One side or something.
Come on, Spanky Blitz on the America video. Okay, I'll do it. Okay.
Let's see.
Shorty's Fulfill the Dream in 1998 introduced a new wave of talent, featuring Sammy Baptista, Jesse Silva, Brandon Turner, and a young Chad Muska, who is quickly becoming a skate superstar after his split with Toy Machine. The video captured the gritty side of urban skating, with a standout stop-motion claymation sequence that ends with a cop getting squashed. At the 1999 Trans World Skating Awards, Fulfill the Dream took home 5 of the 6 Readers' Poll Awards, cementing Shorty's place as a massive player in skate culture. With a solid mix of street skating and pro competitions, this video remains a prime example of what makes an award-winning skate tape. These are just some of the few skate videos that capture the raw, dedicated, and sometimes goofy nature of skateboarding, while also having a lasting cultural impression. Although I'm an outsider looking in, these are just some of the few of many tapes that were circulating throughout the 90s skate scene. I'm sure some of you are already shouting at me for the ones I missed, like particularly Baker 3, even though that's kinda after the Pro Skater series. Watching these tapes helped me understand the vibe Neversoft was going for with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Fast-paced, raw, and full of urban street skating energy. This vibe influenced the game's level design, music, sound, and all in all aesthetic. The overall goal was to mimic the vibe of watching these skate videos, which I find is what made Pro Skater so unique. Pro Skater Demo. Throughout 1998 and early 1999, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater underwent several changes due to size constraints and memory issues. Hidden areas in iconic levels like San Francisco, school, and downtown were cut. The trick system also evolved over time, requiring about 6 months to develop into something satisfying and intuitive. Neversoft CEO Joel Jewett encouraged the team to immerse themselves in skate culture by organizing trips to skate parks and even hosting contests at his backyard halfpipe. Tony Hawk Pro Skater was a collaborative effort led by Mick West's programming, Scott Peace's connection with Activision, and Silvio Poretta's artistry. Poretta even discusses this research in the 2020 documentary Pretending I'm Superman.
I immersed myself completely for a period of 6 months, and this is what inspired me, and this is what made me come up with that specific look.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater first gained exposure through Jam Pack, a demo series from Sony's PlayStation Underground brand, which previewed upcoming PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. The Summer of 1999 edition would feature Pro Skater, allowing players to choose between Tony Hawk and Bob Burnquist. On the map, Chicago, all while Primus's Jerry Was a Race Car Driver played in the background. A second demo appeared on the promotional disc distributed by Pizza Hut, coinciding with the game's official release on November 14, 1999. Leading up to this release, skateboarding was experiencing a significant resurgence. During the 1980s, pop culture influences like Back to the Future, the Bone Brigade videos from Pal Peralta, and Rodney Mullen's trick innovations pushed skateboarding into the mainstream. However, by 1991, skateboarding's popularity began to wane, with companies like Santa Monica and Visual Streetwear facing financial difficulties. Pal Peralta even split into two, following Stacy Peralta's departure. In an interview with Genkin magazine, Tony Hawk discussed the decline of vert skating and its effect on his career. By 1991, I sensed that skating's popularity was waning, and definitely the interest in vert skating was falling even faster. My checks were getting cut in half pretty much every month starting in 1991. It wasn't dead yet, but I could sense the sky falling, and I wanted to do something new. I didn't want to just be a sad, old, washed-up vert skater struggling to make a living, and that's why I started Birdhouse. I knew it was a risk, and that I wasn't going to make as much money, but I had to do something that I was passionate about. In response, Tony started Birdhouse in 1992 by taking out a second mortgage on his house. For 2 years, he focused on building the brand as an art director, stepping away from competitions. However, things began to change in 1995 when ESPN announced the first ever Extreme Games, later renamed the X Games, which took place in Rhode Island. The inaugural event attracted 198,000 spectators. Its success sparked an annual tradition that expanded to international locations by 1998, and it helped thrust skateboarding both street and vert back into the mainstream. Initially, there was some resistance from hardcore skaters to the corporate-led event. Bob Burnquist, for example, expressed his disdain for watching the first X Games on television, feeling it failed to authentically reflect skateboarding. However, he saw the value of exposure at this moment, mentioning in the documentary,
instead of going like, oh, boycott, you go like, how do we figure that out? How do we make it to where the message is right and we get it out there? And as time went by, they kept going, they kept tweaking the event, and there's advisory boards that were formed, and Tony and I were on one.
And then, on July 27th, 1999, just 3 months before Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released, Tony Hawk achieved a milestone that would cement his legacy.
Literally, Pier 30 shook, and we felt the ground swell. I wasn't sure if it was an earthquake or somebody out there doing something special.
He successfully landed the first ever 900 at X Games 5 after 11 failed attempts. The trick, a 2.5 revolution spin, had been considered impossible. However, skater Danny Way had come the closest in the 1999 Santa Cruz Speedwheels video, Risk It. Ultimately, the camera cuts before he fails to nail the trick. Tony's historic achievement captured the attention of the world, appearing in major news outlets like the New York Times, and it helped reignite interest in vert skating. For Neversoft, this was perfect timing. The skateboarding world was buzzing with excitement, and Neversoft quickly added the 900 to Pro Skater just weeks before it came out, giving the players a chance to perform the iconic trick themselves.